6:31 p.m. and I'm going to call to order the May 15th, 2023 Borough Council work session. Item number 1 was our call to order. Item number 2 will be our Pledge of Allegiance. Can I please have that led by Mr. McGinnis? All right, thank you. Item number 3 is comments, suggestions, petitions by residents in attendance regarding items that are not on the agenda. If anybody wishes to speak, please come up and approach the mic, state your name and address for the record. I am seeing none. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 4, which is approved proposal for recreation and parks master plan. Mr. Kurowski, I'm assuming you're going to come up and take care of this one. Thank you.
Keith Kurowski, Director of the Westchester Parks and Recreation Department. I sent out a memo earlier today kind of laying the guidelines out of our process from the initial creation of the RFP to how we distribute that information out to the different firms that might be interested, to our review process, and to our recommendation. Do you have any specific questions from that memo that I sent out earlier? With that being said, we had 9 original proposals. One was immediately pretty much discredited because it was significantly above our budget. There were 2 other that were vetted, but maybe not as thorough because, again, they were over our budget as well. So in total, we had 6 companies that we really felt deserved a fair chance at our review. And a thorough review we did give of them. Myself and the borough manager not only reviewed the initial proposals, we had 2 meetings each day, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday last week with the prospective firms. After each set of meetings, we reviewed those particular firms from that day. And then at the end of the day on Thursday, we further reviewed the firms for about the 4th time and then created a series of metrics in which we used to even further scrutinize the 6 potential candidates. So Sean went home, did his homework. I went home, did my homework. When we came back in on Friday, we pretty much had the same answers to the same test, 1, 2, and 3. It is our recommendation that Borough Council approve the hiring of JMT and Tool Recreation Planning for this process. And the reason why, and I think I put this in the email earlier, Ann Tool. Ann Tool, her reputation precedes her. She has been involved in the PA Parks and Rec Society, the National Parks and Rec Society, the state of Pennsylvania, in Parks, Recreation, PROS, open space planning, plans very similar to ours for the last 35 years. Jason Lang, East Goshen Township, they worked with them in 2016, nothing but glowing reviews. Our own Ramsey Reiner had worked with her in different facets, nothing but positive. And the plan they did with Oakbourne Park over in Westtown Township, no one has anything bad to say. And again, throughout this process, we had originally budgeted $100,000. They come in at 80, well under our budget. And again, whoever we choose as our consultant is going to help us write a grant that's going to help pay for at least a portion of their cost, which, if I'm reading it correctly, the Vision Partnerships Program grant will pay up to 30% of those costs. So we're still looking at a potential another $24,000 that the borough wouldn't have to pay for, which would bring the overall cost, if we're lucky enough, and I'm really feeling with JMT and Tool leading us through this grant process, we're going to get that grant. So the total cost in final to the borough would be $54,000.
Can you go over just a broad overview? Not, you don't have to get into any kind of details, but just what the master plan essentially encompasses in terms of the...
Absolutely. Happy to do so. In short, it's going to be our roadmap. It's going to be our guiding light for the next decade. And then I say in a decade from now, we're doing this again to keep with the times. But it's going to look at our capital projects. What do we want to do in the short term? What do we want to do in the medium term, long term? How are we going to get there? What is the staffing going to look like? One of the questions I kept asking in our review of these different firms was, from the engineering side of things, you got this awesome new toy that you want us to build and create. How are we going to maintain that toy? What kind of events, programming, activities are we going to do with this new toy? This is going to lay that all out. And from the engineering side, Andrew Mears with JMT, his reputation is extensive as well. And the meetings we had with them, even going back to the initial beginnings of this process back in 2021, when there was really no monies on the table, he was willing to come out, meet with us, talk to the rec commission, talk to myself, kind of give us an idea of what we're looking to get ourselves into. It's going to be a lengthy process. It's going to take about a year from start to finish. But it's going to be a very thorough process. And one of the key aspects is going to be the public input, the steering committee, and how they're going to gather that information that we want from the public at large. Because this isn't a Parks and Rec plan for the borough. This is, I should say, it's for the borough residents at whole. It's for everyone. It's not for one park. It's not for one area of town. This is going to encompass everything we do. And I've said it before in a couple other meetings. It'll help maybe some of the smaller parks without the advocacy of the friends groups get a little bit more love. It'll hopefully spread the dollars that's provided by council in our budget to help better those parks that need that assistance. But in whole and in total, this has really never been done at this level and this scope and scale for the borough of Westchester. It's a long time coming. We saw throughout the pandemic how important our parks were to the folks, the residents, and this just further shines a light on that of where we need to be. Again, from a staffing perspective, both in Public Works and Parks and Recreation. And I think the folks that can really lead us to where we need to be would be JMT and Tool Recreation.
Thanks. Yeah, my next question was going to be, have we done this before? And you just answered that, so not really. So it's great.
Okay.
Questions from council?
Mr. Kraske,
Yes, sir.
You went through the dollars pretty fast.
Sure.
What is the borough's match on it?
On the grant,
Yeah.
well, we have the $100,000 budgeted in the budget. It's up to a 40% match, 30,000 max for the grant through VPP. I don't want those numbers off the top of my head, but 30% of 80 is 24K, but it's 40% of 40% of that. Do that math. I'd have to figure that out right quick. 40% of up to 30. No, 40%. Let me try this again.
Get going. Come on.
30% of the 80,000 up to $40,000.
So basically,
30% up to 40,000.
okay, 30% up to 40,000.
Right. So we have Phil's right in our wheelhouse. We could get up to 24,000 if we get the full amount. If I'm you would know better than me, Nick. So teachers over here.
That was a handoff, wasn't it? That was
No,
good.
that's correct. If the plan is $80,000, we go with JMT and Tool. 30% of that would be $24,000.
Yeah. So you already got 20 to the good because they came in under budget.
Yes, sir.
So that's good. So we're heading in the right direction, but
Yes.
thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Just a comment. I mean, this has been a long time in coming. I think it's money well spent. And it sounds like you found a great firm to take it on. And I think it's a great investment to go with them.
Awesome. Thank you. Cool. Thank you.
Great. What's the action on this? Do we take any action, or is this just?
Well, we are looking for council to take some action. So for tonight, it would be to either put that on your consent agenda or on your discussion agenda for tomorrow to approve the plan. And then we can certainly forward their proposal to all of council so you can see the detail if you
Okay.
choose to do that.
Okay. Was there any public comment, by the way? I want to make sure we. Okay. Our council, are we in a consensus to put this on consent tomorrow to approve this proposal?
Yes.
All right. So can we do that for tomorrow night? Have that on as on the consent agenda, an approval of that? Thank you. Great. Thanks so much for your hard work.
Can I just
that-
clarify?
oh, yeah.
That is Wednesday night and not tomorrow.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Vaccaro. Yes. Wednesday night. Yes. Because everybody's going to vote tomorrow. That's right. All right. Item number 5 is discuss short-term rentals in the borough. This is something we've kind of brought up recently. We have a document we're looking at in front of us as well. Mr. Metrick, do you want to kind of take this one off?
Yeah, as you all know, council discussed potentially permitting short-term rentals in our zoning districts because that is a use that's not presently permitted. And some draft language was circulated amongst council. And we believe that there might be consensus amongst council to proceed with the ordinance you see in front of you, pending the outlined language, which was suggested in the last few weeks. Give me a second. I got lots of papers in front of me. Yeah, I was just going to make some comment about the substantive changes and then you could, yeah. To allow short-term rentals by conditional use, as it was previously discussed, we were thinking about allowing it by special exception, which is a different process for approval. Special exception is they like to say there's nothing special or exceptional about it. It goes to the zoning hearing board and the standards by which it gets approved should be outlined pretty specifically in the code. A conditional use process is a little more involved. It'll come before council, and council has broad discretion to attach reasonable conditions of approval in the conditional use process. Did I do all right, Kevin? Good. And there's also a suggestion that there be one parking space per bedroom permitted, and that we define the short-term rental to require an entire dwelling unit, not just one bedroom of a unit. So those three conditions are what we would like to talk with you tonight about, in the hope that we could build some consensus around those changes, and in the hope that in our June meeting cycle, we take action to schedule a public hearing. In the meantime, we can get the local planning commission's review of this ordinance done in the next 30 days.
Okay, yeah, so we have a document we're looking at with some changes made to it. If there's any questions about those on council, I guess this would be a good time to talk about them. And then if we have a consensus, we could, like Mr. Metric said, we can push this off to next month's Smart Growth Committee. So is there any questions about what you have in front of you right now?
Just a couple questions regarding this ordinance. Now, this would only be specifically for town center, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. In other municipalities, I don't know who the expert is here in this, but do they require Airbnbs to be in certain locations of their municipalities, or is it throughout their municipalities? Because my question is, what would prevent, or why should someone be prevented from making money renting out an Airbnb if they don't live in town center?
I can't, excuse me, I can't speak to other municipalities. I think what we were trying to do is trying to control the quality of life in the residential neighborhoods. When you have a rental, there are long-term tenants there. So the individuals that are living next door are familiar with the people that live there. We didn't want to create an environment where you had transient individuals going in and out of there every weekend. I think that was the main focus on that portion, to just keep it in the town center where it's more of a commercial area where we currently allow hotels by special exception. So we were keeping these Airbnb short-term rentals in that same vein as a hotel.
And with that, what would be the inspection timeline for these? Would they be different from a traditional rental?
At this point in time, no, we were going to keep it at the annual intervals with the rentals.
I have no further questions.
Anybody else have questions? Okay. I'm okay with some of the changes that were made in here, and I think we've kind of come back on the parking requirement a bit, which I know was essentially going to handcuff most of the properties in the town center. So I feel like this helps them out a bit to expand that and allow for more. I think I agree with Mr. McGinnis's concern about inspections, but I don't know if there is a practical way to do it in another way, especially, with the staffing issues and that, right?
Yeah, that's something we can always continue to discuss. I don't recall offhand if the inspection interval is spelled out in there specifically, but we can evaluate that. I think, and that's something we can reevaluate as once the ordinance is approved, then we see these things starting to pop up and see what types of issues we may encounter with them. Or if we decide that it's beneficial to have an increased inspection interval for them.
And yeah, Mr. Flynn.
Mr. Gore, the yearly fee for having an Airbnb, I think our rentals are what, 44 or 45 bucks a year?
Right.
What are we going to do for the Airbnbs and do they have to register with the county to make sure they pay county taxes?
So they do have to register with the county under the hotel license and pay those fees to the county under the tourism fee, whatever it's considered with them. I haven't determined what the fee is going to be yet. I think that's something we'll have to sit down and figure out whether we're going to keep it under the rental program, under those fees, or if we do it under the commercial fire inspection program. That's something we'll have to evaluate.
So if they're paying their taxes to the county, will they get a tax stamp to give you or give the borough that way there? We know that they're up to date with their county taxes.
I don't have a copy of the ordinance in front of me, but I believe we put language in there regarding that.
What was the question about just keeping a record?
The tax stamp, because if they don't register with the county, they won't get a certificate that says that they're up to date.
Gotcha.
And I didn't see that in the thing with it. I was just trying to fast read through it. That way there, when they apply for their rental license with building and housing, they have to supply a tax letter or tax stamp.
That's definitely something we should look at, make sure we have that in here.
Yeah, I'll evaluate it, and I agree. That's something that we can certainly add in there as part of the documentation requirements.
One of my main concerns about is not the substance of having a short-term rental, but the companies that oversee it and their non-transparency. So like an Airbnb or VRBO, Verbo, whatever. And I've heard stories that they're not as friendly to the municipalities as we would like. Whereas if we need information or something, they're not very transparent. I know there was somebody here last month who said we could just look it up on a police a database or something within the site, but I think that's only if there's an issue. Mr. Gore, do you have any more information on that?
I don't.
So that definitely brings cause of concern for me personally. I feel like that doesn't give us much power as a municipality to make sure that we're providing safe spaces for people coming into town. But other than that, I'm good. Any other questions, Mayor?
Just two questions. So roughly how many potential spaces in town center could be Airbnbs? And my second question is the other ones that exist in the town, outside of town center, are they grandfathered in?
I'll answer your second question first. No, the ones that are outside of town center will not be grandfathered in. Currently, it's our position that they are already existing illegally outside of the allowances of our zoning code. So they will be ordered to cease and desist that operation. Your first question, I don't have an answer to that. That all depends on whether or not they're going to be able to provide the required parking and whether they can conform to the other requirements of the ordinance. So I don't know. It's going to have to be evaluated. I think currently there may be only one or two that are operating within the town center based on the map that they provide online. But I don't know how many viable locations there are to operate that would conform.
So then a place like Fawnbrook, you're saying would be non-compliant? Or I think there was one on Church Street that just, the big place I understood had their license temporarily suspended while they did work, but then someone else got it on Church Street. I think that's Church Street, yeah.
Well, Fallbrook is an actual bed and breakfast. That's a different license. That's separate. Yeah. They have other restrictions. They have a lot of restrictions, actually.
So then they would not be affected.
No, any bed, we have a separate bed and breakfast ordinance. Different set of standards for those.
Yeah, Mr. Allen.
I just wanted to say again, my concerns remain the same. I've yet to see a huge amount of benefit that doing this will bring to us. I understand that maybe we'll get, more people going to restaurants, but when I walk around at night in the borough, it seems like we're doing pretty okay as we are in that area. I love living in the borough. I think our houses are beautiful, and I think they should be used for living in and not as another investment vehicle. It just makes me really concerned, especially with what property values have been doing the past couple of years, especially.
Thank you. Okay. So, Mr. Metric, in terms of, is there public comment on this? No, okay. In terms of what we're going to do tonight, do we actually have to do any action, or is this something we can just verbally say? This document can go into smart growth next
I
month.
think the purpose of tonight was to have a discussion with council and to take council's temperature, no action. But it sounds like what we can do is take the draft with these amendments, forward it to your planning commission for review, and then have the smart growth committee in June review a 90% completed draft in the hope that you take action in June to schedule a hearing if council wanted to do that.
So
That
just to outline the process, we'll put it on June smart growth to schedule a hearing, possibly for July. We have to send it to the county planning commission and the borough's planning commission 30 days prior to that hearing date. And then we also have to advertise this ordinance, obviously, 2 times before the hearing. So that's what'll take place after the smart growth meeting.
And I think it's 60 days after we set the hearing because of the zoning change. So when we set the hearing, say we set a hearing date in June, it can't be for July. It has to be for August. Is that right? Am I right?
If you set a hearing date for June, Tom, I believe it's 30 days after the ordinance is adopted by Borough Council that it's effective.
Oh, not effective. I'm sorry. If we meet in June, smart growth and full council decides we're going to set a hearing date. Does that hearing have to be 60 days later? It could be the next month.
No, actually, I believe it's 90 days according to the MPC. You have to have a decision within 90 days of the public hearing.
Sure, I understand the question, but once you set a hearing date, we have to advertise that hearing for 2 successive weeks, not more than 60 days before the hearing, and the second advertisement can't be less than 7 days before the hearing.
Okay.
As Kevin indicated, any amendment to the zoning ordinance has to go to the Chester County Planning Commission and your Planning Commission. It has to be with them for at least 30 days before you can have your hearing. It's a little bit confusing.
It is.
There are a
Yeah.
lot of procedural
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
hurdles to follow.
It's
Okay.
it's all going to run concurrently though. So
Yeah, and I think the only reason I'm bringing it up is I don't think we need to rush this. We can get it right, take our time. There's no reason to fast track anything. I think there's concerns brought up here, and we make sure we get it right. So, thank you. Okay, so I think at this point there's no action on this item, and we should see it pop on our smart growth committee next month in June. Cool. All right, thank you. We'll move on. Item 6 is discuss rescheduling the parking committee meeting to begin at 6 p.m. and the public works committee to begin at 6:30 p.m. Is it just flip flopping? Is that point?
Yes, so I'm in both. And I consistently have people come for the parking and have to sit there until really long time later. And it's because Public Works is a long meeting.
Yeah, it has a substantial amount more
Right.
items. Is there any issue with this from council?
Are you saying they don't enjoy my public works meetings?
It's really fun. We all stay, but everyone looks really tired by the time we start talking about parking garages. So,
Any public comment on this?
Just to confirm, is this on the same night as the ACT committee, I believe?
Tuesdays, right?
Tuesday, yes. Yeah.
Tuesday, so 5:30 be ACT and then, okay.
Why don't we make act at 6:30?
No.
Right. So, I mean, I don't have any issue with this. I don't see any public comment. Can we put this on consent tomorrow night?
Yes.
Is that good? All right.
Yeah, I just think it's kind of the pattern we're falling into. Those two committees seem to be the heaviest weight agendas, and it just makes sense, I think, for both of them to go last, Finance and Public Works.
Yeah. Okay. All right, cool. So that'll go into consent for tomorrow night. Item 7 is discuss waiving parking fees for the Fraternal Order of Police event. What event?
That's for me. Just being new here and not knowing what the formal procedure is, any event that is taking place in the borough that's not borough sponsored, I would like to bring to council to waive fees just so that it's on the record and so that I don't have to do it. I did speak to the chief, he fully supports this event. It'll be, and I'm sorry for the late notice, this one's Thursday on Church Street. The cost for the department would be $210. I know there's some public works items related, but this would just be the meter bag rentals. I know it's a good event, but I would like a formal waive of the fees from council if you're agreeable.
I'm not sure I'm clear. What fee are we waiving?
The meter bag rentals for Church Street.
Okay. And this is just for the event, though?
Yes.
Okay.
I have no issue with this.
Okay. Any public comment on this? Okay. We can put this under consent for tomorrow night. All right.
Thank you.
Item 8 is discuss approving the special event application for the LGBTQIA Reminder Tea Dance Celebration.
So I'm going to talk about this. We have a representative here from the History Center if you do have any questions. But basically, the History Center themselves are going to sponsor an event for the LGBTQTNA reminiscent of the tea dances. They were called tea dances they had years ago. They are requesting that just the one block of Evans Street be closed right behind the History Center for the event. And they are willing and able to take care of the parking police. I spoke to both Keith and Chief Moorhead, and they're fine with the application. It's my understanding both of them have signed off and said it's okay. But if you have any more questions about the event itself, we do have Patsy Gabriel Banks that is here representing the Chester County History Center.
Yeah, can you come on up? Yeah, come on up. Introduce yourself. Just give us just like maybe a brief overview of what the event is all about.
Hello. Hi, my name is Patsy Banks Cabral. I am Director of Development at the Chester County History Center. And on June 24th, we're going to have, like the mayor said, Reminders Day tea dance, basically a party in the alley that's right between the two buildings of the History Center, between Hort Hall and the prior YMCA building. The event, it's from 2 to 5. And it's just meant to be a fun time with some street food and some music. And we would appreciate your grace with our submission.
Right? Is it it's family friendly? Everybody's invited?
Yes,
Community
it's
vibe?
open to the public. It's not ticketed.
Yeah, right.
It's a family event.
Cool. Sounds great. Any questions?
I have questions for Mr. Karowski, because I'm more interested in the fees that the police are going to charge for shutting the street down, Public Works, because I know when we have an event that runs around the borough,
Mhm.
that's normally about $1,800. Mr. Karowski can come up. That's about $1,800 for that. Plus, we're having Porch Fest coming up, and we're charging for police protection for the Porch Fest. There's fees all over the place. How did you come to an agreement with the police and Public Works on funding the event? You have them, you know what we're
They're-
charging them?
No, The History Center would be responsible for any and all charges incurred by the borough from the Public Works Department, the Parking Department, and/or police. In speaking with, I think it's Corporal D'Annunzio and the chief, they were both in agreement that it's to close the alley or Evans Street is not difficult. It will absolutely involve involvement from the borough services, a minimum of one officer for the duration of the event, Public Works to set up and take down the barricades, and parking to post any no parking signs. Unfortunately, I do not know what that cost is off the top of my head, but an officer is $180 an hour for a minimum of 3 hours guaranteed. So we're looking at probably 5 hours times 180. And then I would say, a few $100s extra for Public Works assistance as well.
Be here tomorrow night?
Am I here tomorrow night or Wednesday?
No, excuse me, Wednesday.
Oh, I'm sorry.
night. Yeah, you'll be here Wednesday night?
I can be, yeah.
Can you give us a harder number?
Yeah.
Than guessing?
Yes.
Thank you.
The fees are set. Have you seen the fees? They are set, sir.
I haven't seen
Yeah,
they normally have a printout on what it actually costs for the entire
There's
event.
actually a printout in here.
Yeah, I haven't seen,
Yeah.
I have no attachments on screen,
There is a
so
printout.
I can't look at it.
I can, but whatever the fees are, which as Pete said, they're 180 an hour for the police. I know them specifically, which would be 3 hours. They are set, and there they are. There's all the fees for all of the officers. They're in the printouts. And to answer your second question, they will be paid for by the History Center, the Chester County History Center. So there's no excusing the fees. They're paying for them.
Because now that's county owned and they have deeper pockets than most. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Are we in consent for this?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks so much for coming tonight. Appreciate it. Any public discussion before we move on? Comment? Okay. All right. We're going to move on to under our Act Committee, item number 9. Approve the request from the bid to waive the requirements of the busking ordinance for the World Music Day event, June 21st, 2023. This used to have a very, very French name. So I forget what it was. What was it? Some fête de musique or something like that. Music. They did this last year. Cool event. I don't have any issue with this. Anybody have any? All right. I don't know why they changed the name, but cool. All right. Any public comment? All right. That's under consent for tomorrow night. Item number 10 is approve the lease agreement with the Westchester Growers Market. Any changes to it, or is this pretty standard? Committee. So I don't have any issue with this.
It's been extended a little bit longer than past agreements so that they could fit in an extra market date at the end of the year.
Yeah.
But the
okay.
price is the same.
Okay, cool. Okay, great. Yeah. I mean, it's essentially an institution at this point, and awesome thing. So, all right, that can go. Any comment on that from public? All right, let's put that on their consent. We're going to move on to item number 11, which is approve the lease agreement with the Westchester Food Cooperative. Where is this for? Where is this at? So how do we approve a lease with the?
Sorry, this is a different part of the parking lot because they're.
This
the
is-
Oh,
growers
I
market is
understand.
Split up into 2 areas, so we do both of them separately.
Oh,
but
I
it's-
understand. I'm sorry, I confused. Yes. Okay, this is they do the back of the park and they do the alley, right? Okay, yeah, okay.
And this is a very high value lease, as you notice.
Yeah, I was confused. I was thinking they had just got a storefront all of a sudden. I'm like, where'd this come from? But no, I understand. Okay. Okay, I have no problem with this. Anybody?
No.
All right, public comment. All right, that's going under consent. Under our Public Works Committee, number 12 is approve the Next Gen Service Agreement. This was 3-0 from the committee. Mr. McCoy, anything to add about this or anything to note?
No, pretty standard. No,
Okay.
no concerns. Committee recommended 3-0.
Okay. Comments from anybody, public? Anybody have concerns with this, or can this go under consent? All right. 12 is under consent. Item number 13, approve agreement with Willistown Conservation Trust for 2 lawn to meadow conversions at the Borough wastewater treatment plant, Goose Creek and Taylor Run. This got a nice little write-up in the Daily Local, so thank you for that. This is 3-0. I feel like this is, I mean, Mr. Coy, if you want to add anything, I think it's a no-brainer.
No, I think if anyone wants to hear more about it, Mr. Edwards could speak to it, but it's a cool project and it's going to cost us next to nothing.
Yep. Any issues with this? Any comment from the public? All right, we'll move on. That under consent as well. Item 14 is schedule a public hearing to amend Chapter 89 sewer connections for June 21st, 2023. Any just simple explanation of the changes in that?
This is just related to covering the borough if there are connections made in terms of contractors.
Okay. All right, so that'll be for next month. I don't know which day of the week that is, but it's one of those meetings. Any issues with this? Okay, comment from the public? All right, that will go under consent. Moving on to item 15, approve the electronic waste recycling contract. I'm assuming this is just routine here.
Renewal of a previous contract.
Okay, issues with that? Comments from the public? All right, 15 is under consent. We are chugging along here. Item 16 is discuss recommendation to award the bid for the High and Minor Streets intersection improvement project. This was committee recommended 3-0. Mr. Williams, are you going to speak to this?
I'll defer to anyone on council if they have comments first.
Yeah, I think last week we had some discussions about getting some clarity on the estimates and whether, rechecking the bids.
Yeah.
My questions was, we haven't seen any ROC compliant letters coming from the low bidder.
Okay. So I want to go back to 2019. This project goes back to 2019. That's when the borough got a grant for this. I'm the 4th or 5th person that's run point on this project, and it's one we're eager to get finished and off the books. The Gay Street grant that we applied for last month is the same program. And so we definitely want to show we're making progress on that. Billy, can you go back to, it's the first attachment listed for item 16. Yeah, here we go. All right, so we beefed up the attachment a little bit. Aside from giving you a little time frame, I wanted to start with this. This is the best sort of at a glance overview of the project that we have. You'll notice it's dated about a year ago. And this is, not even preliminary design stuff. That's why you'll see a lot of proposed and potential words like that. But just to sort of help conceptualize what we're talking about, this is High Street and Minor Street. Some traffic bump outs, ADA, and new pedestrian push buttons. There's a little bit of stormwater infrastructure. We're taking out 2 very small street trees and replacing them with some new ones, some new brick sidewalk. The ADA ramps are concrete by necessity, but they're tinted red. It looks a lot like West Market Street or North Church Street in the town center.
Excuse me.
Yep.
Are they going to be stamped concrete, or are they just going to be stained concrete?
Stained concrete.
Okay.
Yep. So page 2 and to 4 of this attachment is our cost estimate from TPD. They're still running point on this, and we're going to phase them out at some point in this project, probably actually when construction starts and start leading with Remington and Burnick, but they helped us put the bid together on this. So page 2 to 4 is the cost estimate. Billy, if you go to page 4, you'll see their bottom line, which was $441,000. This is dated January, so it's after, the last couple of years have been crazy, hectic for pricing on projects like this, but this is a very recent cost estimate. We use that number 441. We added about 10 or 15% and came to council last month and asked you to approve a budget of 500, give us a little more wiggle room. There's a $400,000 grant associated with that. So our net cost is whatever 441, whatever that total project is minus a $400,000 grant. Page 5 is bid tab and engineer's recommendation from TPD. We got 2 bids for this. Opening a bid is always cringeworthy. You hope for 2 things. First, is it at or below budget? Second, you want a good sample size. So this one, we got one of those things. We got a bid that's below budget, but we don't have a lot of sample size to put this in context. So we're going to depend heavily on our engineers for this. Page 9 to 11, Billy, part of the county grant, the county DCD office has to review all of our grants and issue their own sort of approval. They have a bunch of boxes that we need to check, part of the bid and part of the contractor's qualifications. So this was one of the points of confusion last week. They issued one, it was dated May 4th, I believe. And right there, that cost estimate, that second box, it was like $1 million. And so between that second bid we got, which was almost 900, and the county's letter saying this project is estimated to cost about $1 million, it was kind of weird. So it turns out that this form's the 3-page letter. It's a form they do for every single project in this grant program. When they're issuing one for a new project, they take the last one they did, they save over it, and they update the information. They failed to update all the information. So that price was actually just left over from the last time they went through this process. So this is the updated letter that we got. It's dated the day after our Public Works Committee, which shows the cost estimate, which is the same number that TPD gave us, and updated date. So that point of confusion is hopefully solved. Getting back to the bid, in addition to TPD's review and recommendation, Don Edwards reached out to the principal of the company, Premier Concrete, just to double check that they're triple check really to make sure that they stand behind their bid, and they do. I wasn't part of that conversation, but maybe Don could expand on that if we want to. And the topic of change orders came up last week. That's always a concern with a project this size. Change orders happen when there's a change to the scope of work. You can't come back after a project started and say, well, we underbid on granite curb. We need a change order. Only if the quantity of granite curb changes, then we have a change order. So not too concerned there. It's always a concern with a project like this, but it's the same as this project for any other one we're doing. And then lastly, I wanted to point out, so as far as the responsible contractors ordinance, a lot of emails flying around about this. And like I said, my email, you go back to that ordinance, it's very straightforward. There's a clear timeline and process that we're supposed to follow. Pages 26 through 29 include their responsible contractor certification. Billy, go to page 28. Item number 11 is really the gist of it. It says that they state that they participate in an apprentice program for each trade or classification it employs on the project. I think slightly above there, it talks about prevailing wage and Davis-Bacon wage and everything. So our process from here, this is a self-certification form. It's signed, it's executed, it's notarized. What happens there, according to the ordinance, we go to council. You approve a notice of intent to award the bid. From there, we have 14 days to go back to the contractor, ask them for all the documentation to back up everything in this certification. And at that point, we can move ahead with the project. Part of that process is also getting the same document for every subcontractor that they plan to use on the project. And after we've collected all that information, then the borough manager issues a responsible contractor determination saying that we've done our homework, we're confident that you check all the boxes of the ordinance. And then from there, we post it online for 10 days. So the public and, like I said in my email, the competing contractors more likely can pick it apart if they want to and let us know if we got something wrong. So that's the process in terms of responsible contractor ordinance. And we think this is a good bid. Obviously, like I said, there's always potential for change orders, but we think this is a good contractor. They included a list of projects. They do a ton of work like this, and I'm confident they can execute at the price.
Okay, thank you for that. That's great. Any questions? Yeah, Mr. Allen.
I think you said this. I just wanted to make sure we're going to end with the same number of street trees.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, Mr. Flynn.
I still don't feel comfortable. I know I feel wet and warm, but I don't feel comfortable about it. When we execute this thing, I think you should come back to council to make sure that we feel confident that the RCO is fulfilled. I can tell you that I've met all the requirements. And, or just an email from the borough manager telling us that he has checked with the Department of Labor out in Harrisburg to make sure the contractors and subs are all registered with the Department of Labor.
So-
Because I could tell you that, yeah, I certified it. Yeah, we have apprentice programs, just
Yeah.
like what we did on the roof. You know, it's check and balance on it.
Yeah.
I feel more comfortable that way.
So what process and timeline would you propose for that?
Well, once council approves this, it
Mhm.
would probably, but I guess Wednesday night. Yeah. 14 days. We don't see you for another, 18 days? So I would hate to see the thing executed without us seeing the final documents that saying that they've met all the requirements.
Well, there's also, keep in mind, the 10-day public posting period. So from Wednesday, there are 14 days for us to do our homework. And then there's the responsible contractor determination. That's a separate document.
Okay.
That's the borough saying, we've checked all the things, we've obtained all the documentation for these. Here's a written document saying that this contractor qualifies. And then from there, that's posted publicly for 10 days. So that puts us at, I'd have to double check probably the Public Works Committee would occur before all that timeline expires.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I would like to meet before we execute something this large, that's all.
Yeah, and we're not sitting there waiting for the clock expire to execute the contract. You
Right.
know, that will usually takes a week or two or maybe 3 after that.
Yeah.
So we could come back to council
I
next
mean,
month.
we did have that situation on the roof.
Mhm.
You know, we had the general was good, but the subs, didn't meet certain requirements that the borough has. So that's delaying a lot of things going on. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's important. The RCO is very important.
Yeah. I think, this is only a second project we've run through, but you're right in that again, we're following the process laid out in the ordinance, but maybe we should think about amending that to require more documentation as part of the bid. Let's get together and figure out what are the 2 or 3 most critical pieces here and go ahead and request that with the bid. That would mean I have the backup documentation at this meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
So
Thank
we got a lot to learn about as we've run through more projects through this, but like I said, this is only the second one.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for your work.
Mr. McGinnis, yeah.
Yeah, just one comment, and I'm glad to see that, again, this is going to be working as intended, right? So they have to produce that certificate moving forward, both bidders. So would TPD, would they still be in charge of the project? If so, up until what time frame?
We talked about it, and it probably makes sense when they break ground to just have Remington and Vernick start with construction management. So TPD handles sort of the execution of the contracts. And then once we get, not even breaking ground, like once all the contract stuff is squared away and it moves on to implementation and pre-construction, that's probably the cleanest way we can hand it off to another engineer. Because once ground breaks, it'll get really dicey.
Yeah, right, exactly. The question I had, I see there were letters addressed to Don Edwards. So is Don running this project, or are you running this project? So he's pointing at you. I don't want to get a situation where we're doing that Spider-Man thing and everyone's pointing at one
Yeah,
another.
it's sort of been a platoon approach.
Yeah, it's a team. It's a team, and all final decisions and final outcomes are the responsibility of the borough manager. But I try to empower the team to make executive decisions and come to me with problems and solutions. And so we work together. I think it's a good group.
And final question, how involved is TPD still with this project, reviewing the documentation? Because they're no longer with us. So I just wanted to confirm that for the public.
Yeah, they're very involved with the bid process. But we felt that, TPD's been working on this actually prior to 2019. I mean, doing design, the scope of the project has changed a lot. But TPD's been working on this for 4 or 5 years. To drop them and bring in a new engineer immediately prior to issuing the bid, we felt like, that would set the project back, and some things would get lost between the, slip between the cracks there. So like I said, I think when it goes from the paperwork and design phase to shovels in the ground, that's when it makes sense to make a clean start with a new engineer.
If I could just add to that, when Remington Vernick takes over, what they're going to be doing as part of construction management is making sure that the contractor is conforming to TPD's design. So RVE is not changing anything. It's not like they're going to start conflicting with TPD. It's just a matter of them looking at like the drawings that come in and comparing it to TPD's design and making sure it all conforms. So it's not a major change.
Thank you. And I feel more confident because I did see there were 2 bids, right? There was the initial one, it said, or 2 estimates. One was for roughly 900 and something thousand. And then we had a bid come in at 400,000. That's where I got skeptical after I was talking to Mr. McCoy before or after our meeting, when we reviewed that. But I think as long as, we let the process, you're right, we let the process play out, I think we're going to be okay.
Yeah. That 936 number, again, that's from a different project, different municipality. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, great. Any comments? Yeah. Daryl.
Daryl Cook, South Walnut Street. I'm curious how much it'll cost to remove the bump outs on East Minor Street in the future. If it's discovered that the gridlock that I've witnessed in the past couple of weeks with a 2-lane roadway increases, we all know how many streets feed to East Minor Street. Northbound on Walnut, southbound on Walnut, westbound on Neal or on Minor Street. I've witnessed gridlock northbound on the 100 block of South Walnut Street in years gone by. And again, recently in the past couple of weeks, I've witnessed it again with the existing 2 lanes.
Yeah, I don't know if we that's a good thing. It's a good thought to think about, but I don't know we could have any kind of idea.
Yeah, I think that the design of this project is good for the borough. It makes it safer for pedestrians. It makes it safer for people driving cars to navigate the intersection. If we have a really pervasive and bad traffic problem, we can look at signal timing as a solution to help with that.
Okay. Okay, are we good for consent on this? Yeah. All right, thank you very much. Moving on to under our parking committee, item 17 is schedule a public hearing to amend chapter 77 to exclude multi-unit properties from the residential permit parking program. This is for June 21st, 2023. I think that date is good. I don't think it'll be a super long one. Any comments about that? Anything else to add about that? No.
I just one question. Was this address specific?
Yeah, this was for is it 410? I keep saying 410 South High, the old Burger King property.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understood that correctly.
Yep. Okay. Any public comment on that? No. Okay, so that'll go under consent. Item 18 is schedule a public hearing to amend chapter 104-39 regarding oversized vehicles at borough lots and land for June 21st, 2023 as well. Anything else to add about this? Okay, any public comment on that? Right, we're gonna have some public hearings next month. That'll go under consent. Item 19, approve the agreement between the Borough of Westchester and Business Improvement District signs at the Chestnut Garage. This was committee recommended 3-0 as well. Anything to add about that, or pretty just agreement?
Just the agreement with the bid.
Any other comments from the public on that? All right, this will go under consent as well. Item 20, enter into a service agreement with Johnson Controls Fire Protection. Is this for a specific property, or is this?
Chestnut Street Garage, I believe this one is for.
Okay. And this is just to operate their system, I guess, like sprinkler system, or something like that.
Fire extinguishers and service all of the fire. alarm.
Comments from anybody on this one? Public? We good? All right, consent for number 20. All right, under public safety, item 21 is schedule a public hearing to amend Chapter 3, Section 3-37 to appoint 2 alternates to the Civil Service Commission. That's also for June 21st, 2023. I know this was discussed last month as well, or was brought up last month by the chief, by our police chief Moorhead, and I don't see any issue with it. Anybody have any issue? I feel like this is the right move. Okay. All right. That'll go under consent if there's no other public comment. Okay. Item 22, direct the borough manager to make application to PennDOT to install a 4-way stop sign at the intersection of Price and Brandywine Streets. A hot topic, as Ms. Vaccaro could attest. Any questions about this? Okay. I'll make my comment, and if you get yelled at later, it's fine. I think it's completely unnecessary. I feel like we don't need it. I don't like a lot of extra stop signs. I drive past that road quite often. Don't see an issue. So, but if I'm the only one, I will consent to it. Anybody else?
I'll go along with you, Michael.
Okay. We're going to put this under discussion tomorrow night.
There you go.
Sure, Sheila's excited about that. Okay, item 22 is going to go under discussion tomorrow night. I will allow public comment if anybody wishes to add it. All right. Got that, Dana, for that one? Discussion. Okay, good. Item 23, schedule a public hearing to adopt an ordinance to recognize the authority of the Westchester Fire Department and volunteer fire companies operating within the borough of Westchester to seek reimbursement for hazardous abatement incidents, environmental incidents, and fire safety and rescue responses from third parties. And that will be also for June 21st, 2023. That's quite a lot on that one date.
I think there's a little more discussion council has to engage in on this one that we didn't finish at public safety, and I hate to throw a wrench in it, but I got to get on the same page with our solicitor's office here about what needs to be discussed. What you have in front of you is basically an ordinance that was passed in West Goshen Township to accomplish the same thing. So there's a few things that need to be discussed that our legal team don't really think are necessary in the ordinance, but were included in the West Goshen ordinance because their board and their public safety team thought it was important to do things like call out specifically how much each item costs, and to kind of control that. You don't have to do that. You can create a reimbursement scenario where the fire department handles all of those transactions instead of maintaining another fee schedule. So that would be the issue of the resolution. They also made a point in West Goshen, which I think is a good point, that in a couple places in the ordinance that the company that the fire department would hire to go after these costs incurred would only go after insurance companies. So in other words, if you, Mr. Stefano, had a fire at your house and there was costs incurred, it would fall under your probably your property damage homeowner's insurance, and the fire company would be making a claim against them, not against you personally. And I think that's important. And then Kristen also thought that this in section 2, part number F, where we're talking about responding to a fire in another fire department service area not authorized to bill for the cost. She thought, why is that necessary? If Fame Fire Company goes to assist somewhere outside of our service area in West Goshen Township, stop me if I say anything wrong, Steve. Am I good so far? Yeah. And while they're there assisting, they incur some damage to their equipment or hoses. They should be able to recover that. So those are 3 things that we failed to really flesh out from the committee when we talked about it last week. So that's on me. Yeah, I think that's the point of trying to get at the only going after the insurance company. I think that point's mentioned twice.
So what do you suggest? Do you think we should push this back to the committee for another month? I mean, we could add those things in there for next month if we just schedule the hearing and then we have time before we post it. But if you feel like that's something that we need to go back and really discuss and
I think I need some feedback. If the solicitor wants some feedback on those items, would that be most appropriate at public safety? I'm so sorry, Steve, Steve's been waiting so patiently for me to help get this
Well,
through the legislative process.
one of the lines in here says, seek reimbursement for hazardous abatement incidents. Normally, I thought when you had a hazmat situation, they bring an outside company in to do the remediation. Is that correct, chief? Or do you guys suck up all the bad stuff into something?
So, Steve Pellina, Fire Chief, yes, on the remedial phase of it, but on the front end, as far as any control of hazardous materials. So let's say there was a home heating oil tank in somebody's basement and a sump pump pumped it out to the street, and we would keep the fluids from going into the stormwater system. So that would be all of our materials that we would use to do that. We wouldn't actually dig up the street or dig up the basement where there was impact from the heating oil.
Yeah, I didn't know whether you somehow reclaim stuff that goes wrong. So you're just putting
No.
ducts up or barriers that
Correct.
contain everything.
Yep, damming, diking, diverting, yep.
Okay, yeah, good, perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
what is council's take on this? Do you think this is something we should push back and vet it out at the committee level for next month?
I think that's fine. This was a sort of heavy thing. Everybody was in support of it, but there was a lot there.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah, okay. I think getting that solicitor feedback then for the solicitors and then kind of fleshing it out at next public safety, make sure we, just like I said before, make sure we get things right. I think that's a good idea. Is that okay with everybody? If that's the case, do we need to, how do we handle this item? Do we just
Council can refer it to committee.
refer it to committee? So we don't need to actually take action on this item then? Okay. All right. So that's what we'll do. Any public comment on this? All right. So item 23 will not be under consent tomorrow, and then that will come back up under public safety next month. All right. All right. Moving on to Smart Growth Committee, 24. Consider solicitor attendance for zoning appeal number 1003 of 334 West K Street. Applicant seeks relief from section 112-307.b to permit the construction of an addition to an existing single-family attached dwelling. The committee was in favor of not sending a solicitor to this. Mr. Gore, anything you want to add to this about?
No, it's a dimensional variance.
Yeah, I don't see a need to send a solicitor to this. Anybody disagree or? All right, so item 24 can be dismissed. I'm going to find the right terminology one of these months. Okay, so there's no action on item 24. Any public comment on that? Okay. Item 25, authorize the solicitor to prepare an ordinance to vacate a portion of Prescott Alley from parcel 1-8-230.1 east to North Darlington Street. We're vacating it and making it part of the property? Is that what we're doing or?
Yeah, I mean, we've decided to vote 3-0 to vacate that portion of the property. I believe that goes back to a previous decision going back to the 1974, around that time frame. That alley right there, that's in between St. Agnes Church and then the daycare and the kindergarten section. So it's not really warranted.
Okay. So at this point, can a car drive through there now?
Yeah,
It can?
and the car will continue to drive through there.
If we're vacating it, what happens to it? I'm
Okay,
confused.
all right, I'll give you some background. Okay, there's 424 feet. It goes from Gay Street to Darlington Street. 1974, the borough vacated 300.59 feet up to a residence house, Mr. and Mrs. Gonzalez, which left 124 feet left on it was actually called Prescott Avenue. So as Mr. McGinnis mentioned, by vacating it, the borough hasn't maintained that avenue for over 50 years because it sits inside the playground area behind the convent. Okay. So what they did was they built a gymnasium there and a school there and a playground. So at each end of at Gay and Darlington, there's two pillars with gates on them. And the parish has agreed to give the borough an easement for any utility work that needs to be done there. And the parish has maintained it since 1974. So it sits inside their footprint. And it's really not good to anybody else but the parish. So.
I had about, or someone else mentioned about having access to, if there's any street or issues, will the borough still have access?
Yeah. Yes. Full access. Yeah. And the issue when we first started talking about this is we were thinking about selling the whole alley to the church, but we didn't know until we did the archives that they actually own 300 feet of it already. And you can't sell or rent a right of way. So the extra 124 feet is 2 car lengths, 3 car lengths. So.
Okay. Yeah, I think that all makes sense.
And I'm going to have to recuse myself from any vote because I was the one who presented the situation.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Are we, how's that going to work if you're going to essentially abstain?
Yeah. I'll vote for it.
Well, but if it's on the consent agenda, so maybe we should put it on discussion just so you can vote separately. Is that okay? Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Yeah. All right. So just for the purposes of Mr. Flynn abstaining himself or recusing himself, we're going to put that under discussion tomorrow and have a separate vote on that.
That's fine.
If there's a conflict, you can do that, right?
Yeah.
There's a conflict. Okay.
It's a conflict of interest.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any public comment on this? Okay. So that'll go under discussion though. Write that down for myself. Okay. Moving on to item 26, which is our approve our April 2023 HARB certificates of appropriateness. I looked at both. I know A was, presenting it as presented or awarding it as presented. Sorry. B had a few recommendations. Any issues with either of these, Brian, that we need to?
No, there were no issues.
Okay. All right. All right. Any public comment on these? All right. So we can put item 26A and B under consent for tomorrow. All right, under our finance revenue, item 27 is discuss approving the volunteer firefighter and EMS earned income and real estate tax credits. I know this has been something that's been brought up for quite some time now. Any information you want to add to this, Mr. Metrick, or go over?
Yeah, this is a discussion, and Chief Pelton is here with us tonight to talk you through it. This has been done in other municipalities pursuant to enabling legislation at the state that allowed credits of real estate and earned income tax for volunteer firefighters. Essentially, the fire companies would validate a list of candidates for the credit. The persons would pay their taxes and then represent the credit to the borough for a refund. That's basically how it works. EIT is a little new to me. I've only dealt with it in terms of property tax rebates, and there's limits council can set to the amount of money. And Steve can talk about how that's going to help our departments. This is just a discussion to flesh out a little more detail so we can bring something back next month that's good to go.
Sure. Thank you. So constant quest of recruitment and retention of our volunteers. These are 2 programs that the state enacted through the aid to try to bring more volunteers and keep them around. So multi-spoke approach here to our wheel of a volunteer. There isn't one of these items that is going to grab one of our folks and keep them around. However, it's just one more step for all of our officials to thank our volunteers and continue to lighten the burden on them and do what we can to try to keep them coming around. But real estate tax, Again, it's only for those who own a home and it's their primary residence within the borough of Westchester. So they can't be at an outside municipality, volunteer for us, and you guys giving them a rebate. So they have to have their primary domicile here in the borough. And then we would go through a process of as far as who is eligible for that and who is not. We would go through a two-tier validation of that. The local captain or president of the company would validate that they are indeed meet all the requirements, and then that would get kicked up to myself for a second validation. It would be presented to council the second week, by the second week of January. So then you had it for the upcoming tax season. And again, the way we're presenting it anyway is the bills would go out as normal. The volunteer would pay, and then they would see a rebate or a check back. Already West Goshen's seen a little bit of, I wouldn't say issues, but they feel it would be easier for them to just not send a bill out at all to the volunteer. So that's up to you and the tax team how to handle that. I'm just giving you feedback from what they found so far, and just passing it on. So that's on the sorry, I had a little brain stumble there on the real estate tax. On the earned income tax, Keystone in October ish would send out a form. Individual would fill that out as far as their income, what they've paid. It would go through the process that would finalize by the end of the year, and that would be worked through the Keystone process.
So the EIT, is that also for just borough residents or no? Because everybody pays that.
Correct. Well, it's for anybody, but for your standpoint, it would only be those who live in the borough, and for their tax that they would pay towards the borough. The question there then is how to handle it. Do you handle it as far as only folks that also own in the borough as well, or they can be renters on top of that? So usually the general feeling is they have to own as well to get the relief on their earned income as well.
Okay.
But the act for the state allows either, so they don't have to own.
My initial thoughts. This has been talked about for quite a while now, and I think it's still absolutely incredible to me that we have 100% volunteer, in all three stations, and that's incredible. And anything we could do to thank them and to show them how much we appreciate what they provide for us on a volunteer basis, again, which is absolutely incredible, is worth it. So I'm in favor of this. I don't know if there's other issues we have to look at in terms of legality, but in concept, I'm in favor of it.
I appreciate it, Mr. Stefano.
Mr. Flynn.
As we talked earlier at our finance committee meeting, the property tax portion of it is easy for the borough to administer. I always believed we have to send out a bill and then credit, because we need a paper. You need some kind of backup in paper to make sure it's done. The EIT is very difficult to administer because the volunteer has to start giving us all their personal data, and we have to validate, and we have to pay somebody in-house to calculate what it's going to cost for the discount for the EIT. The blanket property tax, it'd be easier for us to give a higher property tax rebate or credit than it would even touch the EIT, because of the administrative problems that we have trying to look at everybody's personal information to make sure they get their 1099 or whatever they get in January. That puts us into an accounting firm. And I don't think we should be in that kind of business, but the tax credit falls under our preview.
Understood. Chief Pelna, do you have any kind of an idea of how many people this would be?
Yeah, so we're at 14. So rough numbers if everybody qualifies. So that's just, so I'm sorry, I didn't mention to this entire time, and usually Mr. Flynn reminds me because I usually have somebody from Good Fellowship over my right shoulder. But they are also part of this as well. So I believe off the top of my head, it's 14 fire department, 2 Good Fellowship. So 16 in total. So I think we were roughly at the 8,000 worst case scenario, but what we found in other, there we go. Thank you for the help there, Billy. So if you can go to the other one, Billy, it's 2 slides before this. Yeah, so 8,000, that's if everybody qualifies. Now we find that, you know, the old adage, 20% of the people do 80% of the work. So I would say, you know, we're sitting somewhere between 60 to 70% of that 16 number. So in reality, you're probably closer to $6,000, but I just want to give you the worst case scenario that we have here. Now, remember, we have individuals spread out across 6 municipalities, and not everybody owns. Our majority of volunteers are between that 18 and 25, so they're living at home with mom and dad and that sort of thing, or they're here with the college. So everybody has different motivation for why they volunteer. So this helps some of our individuals who've been around a while, keeps them coming around. We already saw a difference in West Goshen where we've had individuals who haven't been around in quite a few years, and they're starting to come back again. So the effort is worth it for the few $100s. And I'd be remiss if I didn't, if you could go 2 slides more about to Mr. Stefano's point about there's a cost of an average firefighter over $70,000, and that's without, you know, a multiplier or burden on top of that. So what, Nick's joining? Is that what you're saying?
We were discussing how poorly the school teacher get paid. The firefighter.
But I won't go down that route at all. I'll stick in my lane. You know, you're over $100,000 per person, as you guys know. So if all is in, if everybody's in, and again, the numbers are higher in this slide because I included those who are renters as well. So we're at 36 total volunteers if we include the EIT with non-homeowners. But my guess is we would go towards the tract of homeowners only. I think it makes more sense. I don't want to cut everybody out, but for you, I think it makes more sense.
Okay, and Mr. Flynn, your concern was more of a administrative issue, like just actually having somebody to deal with the.
The EIT would actually have to have somebody in the finance department, you know, work as an accountant for the 14 or 15 people. They have to send in their W-2s to us and all that stuff. And they may not want us to know what they're making and all that kind of carrying on, because we have to get into their personal information. You may want to ask Ms. Leonti if, you know, what she thinks about the administration part of the EIT.
Yeah, and if I could, I haven't gotten into the back office side of things, so I don't know for sure, and I agree with you 100%. But through Kristen Camp and West Goshen, kind of spoiled on that side of the house, that they're mirroring a veterans association from the county, and I really don't know the ins and outs of it. But with that process, I think it's eliminating a lot of that, but I don't know for sure, and I don't know if that's something we can get from Kristen or West Goshen, or of course if Barb is able to help us out at all.
Good evening. Personally, I don't think it would be a big issue for our department since EIT is handled by Keystone Collections. It would probably just be a communication to make sure that, you know, those individuals got their prospective credits, but that would just be my first initial reaction.
Okay. All right, okay.
There you go.
Okay.
I'm right 99.9% of the time.
I understand.
I ask myself. Thank you, Ms. Leonti.
Yeah. Any other comments from council? You know, Sean, so I feel like we have a consensus, but you know, we still need to vet some stuff out. But what are we looking at from here on?
Sounds like I didn't hear any objections from council to the concept or idea of it. So what we'll do in finance next month, if that's okay with the committee, draft up some options to bring to council that have dollar signs attached to them. I know Steve proposed some things, but we have a lot of latitude and flexibility here as to what we can do. And that way we can have something that's actionable for next cycle.
Okay, I like that idea. Any issues with that? All right. So thanks so much, Chief Pelna, for all the information, and it looks like we'll have something to discuss next month and move forward. So great, thank you. Okay, so that item 27 will no action on that. That'll go back to finance and revenue for next month. All right, 28. Was there any public comment on 27 before we move on? No. Okay. Item 28, approve purchase of new virtual host servers. It's a planned capital project changed from purchase to 4-year lease with $1 buyout. Mr. Mann, are you gonna?
I can
talk
speak
about-
to it for a second, sure. Very quick.
I'm assuming it's you, virtual host server. It's got to be.
Yeah, they're virtual host servers. So there was a change that I had to really make here. So we had $30,000 budgeted for these 2 host servers, and the cost is more than that. And there's a couple of reasons for that. The last time we could get an expected cost from that was October of 21. Then the servers got delayed. If you remember last year, we swapped the servers for the firewalls because of this delay. So that time plus the rising labor costs, parts, production delays, limited availability with this generation server had the cost higher. So I had a couple of things I had to think about the best way to handle it. The most financially responsible way to handle it was simply to change it to a 4-year lease with a $1 buyout. So after 4 years, we own it. We have full service and support during that time. And the result of that really is minimal. This year, it's actually saving us $9,600 from what we would have budgeted, what we would have spent. And then $7,800, the additional cost of that is spread out over 5 years, my 5-year capital plan. So we're actually, the additional cost is being spread out over 5 years, and we're saving some money this year. Then I just show you my 5-year capital plan up there. Or here, this is where it was sitting. And in 2027, it was sitting there again. We can get 5 years out of these things instead of 4, spread the cost out. The additional cost is down here, the 5 years. And like I said, saving a little bit of money this year. This is me geeking out here. These are all the parts that it takes to build these things. And we work with HP on this to make sure you have the right equipment that's going to last us 5 years and we can grow with, especially with Nick's data stuff. There's a lot of cool stuff there. So this will serve us for a long time. Again, these are virtual hosts. So all these servers are living in these 2 servers. And actually one is redundant to the other, meaning so they're all living in both. One's the primary, it's running all the time. We have to do maintenance, do work on it. Staff does not know we switched to the redundant server. It's also there for cybersecurity. If one is, impacted with a problem, the other one can take up this, can keep it going. So it's critical to the backbone of our organization. And really, we own it for $1 at the end. Then I've been through this with them. They don't charge you the $1. It's just, it's done.
Just done.
Yeah.
So
if they charge me for $1, I'll come back to you.
These servers, what's their lifespan?
I would say 5 to 7 years. We're going to get 6 or 7 years out of these.
Okay, so 4-year lease, we'll get a couple more years out of it.
That's why I was able to take it off the 2027 planned budget. We are speccing these enough that they're going to grow with us, and we have a full warranty throughout the life of it.
Okay.
Unexpected service costs, which is a part problem or whatever.
Savings are never not gonna argue with that.
And further geeking, we're going to remove one of the old virtual servers down to Public Works simply for storage for their sewer vehicle that does all the camera work. Right now, we're using an old NAS drive, which is on its last leg. So we're going to move one down there and keep that thing going.
Okay.
Kind of like the Voyager spacecraft. So they keep going. They just keep living and living. And if you read the latest story, it's still going. So we're going to do that with the servers too.
Bill, you're talking yourself out of it.
Yeah. All right. Any issues with this?
No.
No? Any questions from the public? All right, thanks for that, Bill. Appreciate it. So item 28 will go under consent. Item 29 is approve grant resolutions for I, which is a DCD flood mitigation program at Taylor Run Stream Restoration, and then 2 is DCD recreation program, and that's at Hoops Park Racket Center Rehabilitation. When we're approving a grant resolution, is this just the writing of the grant? What exactly are we approving?
These are resolutions that are part of our grant application for these two projects. Taylor Run Stream Restoration is a stream protection project. It's on Hannum Avenue, right? Near Hannum Avenue. And the Hoops Park Racket Center is refinishing the tennis courts in Hoops Park.
So are these just like when you're saying this, where are we in the grant process? Is this still like in the writing process? Is it the end of the writing process? Sorry, that's what I'm asking. I'm kind of confused.
Both grants are due May 31st. It's sort of a requirement. I mean, a grant is, A, you're asking for money, but B, you're committing to spending money in the future if the grant's awarded. The actual commitment will come during the budget process for the year prior to when implementation occurs. And because of that, it's just the best practice to run these through the elected board before they go in.
Okay, I understand. Any issues with this? Questions? Mr. Flynn?
So, Mr. Williams, so the grants would be for 2024, and when we do the budget for 2024, it would go into that money?
Yeah, except
Because I don't think we have any grant money, matching money sitting on a line item anywhere for 23.
so with these, we probably won't hear back on these grants until after our budget is finalized. So these are probably 2024 and 2025 projects straddling 2 budget years, or 2025 at this point. And both of them actually, if they sound familiar, that's because we submitted grants in December for both projects. What we're going after here is hedging our bets that we get one. And if we get both, then both are approaching $0 projects. We can use one as match for the other. And I think it's the Taylor Run project. It's like a $900,000 project. Assuming our engineer cost estimate is good, we're looking at $2,000 or $3,000 right now if we get both of them.
That'd be our match.
Yeah.
Oh, it's good.
And again, that's for, that one is a bigger project, so that's 2025 and beyond.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, this is
Okay. I just didn't want to have to have us come up with $40,000 not in the budget if we get lucky to get one of the grants and we can't fund it ourselves.
Yeah.
That's not ever good.
There's a lot of time built into these projects, and that's because it's not really fair to budget it until you've heard back from the granting agency. So it's just the nature of how slow we get word back after submitting it. It's got to span multiple budget years.
Great, thanks for that. Any comments on this or questions? Okay, thanks, Will. Any public comment? All right, we will put this under consent for tomorrow as well. Item 30. This is the most item numbers we've had in a long time. So item 30, approve letter of intent for participation in DVRPC led EV charging federal grant application. I'm assuming this is just exactly what it is, a letter of intent that we're gonna write grants or go for grants. Is that what this is?
Yeah, Will can fill in the details, but as he's approaching the mic here, this is something that kind of fell in our lap because of our relationships with DVRPC. That's the regional NPO.
Yeah, so this is pretty similar to the last. It's just making sure that council's on board with our going in for this application. The difference here is most of the grants we apply for are county and state funded. This is federal funding. I said last week it's really, really challenging, if not impossible, for a municipality like us to go after federal funding directly through a federal grant. DVRPC is packaging up about 20 to 30 local municipalities in the 5-county region. Philly's doing their own application, but for us small townships and boroughs outside, we're going in on a joint application. The only other thing I'll add is I was talking about the multi-year timeline for grant projects. When you're talking federal funding, you can add a year or two to that process. So I think they're trying to wrap up construction by 2030.
Wow. Okay. Well, yeah, but I mean, it's something though that I think, this is definitely forward thinking and we're headed there, but we're not there yet. So this is great that we're on the forefront of this. Great. That's great. I have no issue with this. No. Any comments? All right. Any public comment? All right. We will put that under consent. Item 31, approve a $17,025 purchase for Greenfield Park Rain Garden Landscaping. I know this was discussed last week. And I know that I have some constituents, just because this is in my neck of the woods, who are definitely interested in this. So anything you want to go over specifically with this? I guess this is just this is the final stage of the rain gardens that we're kind of looking at here, the planting and everything. I know there were issues the last big rainstorm we had where the water pooled up, but I understand it's just because we were not there yet, right? So
Yeah, I'm excited about this one because they're using plugs and small containers to plant this, which I think is a much better way to do it. The original spec and the bid had broadcast seed, which didn't sound like the right sort of thing you should be doing in a rain garden. So I think we'll get good survivability here, and they're very local, native oriented in the plant palette that they've chosen. So this also has can be a good example, a good ecological example once it takes root and starts to flourish. So I'm excited about this.
it's great. Now, do we have any anticipation on this helping with any of the mitigation of like some of the flooding we get down there? Will it at least help with that? I mean, I don't think it's going to fix it all, but
Yeah, it's not going to fix it. I want to be clear about that, but it's a type of project for which we need many, many more of. Each one detains a lot of stormwater. Some of it goes into the ground over time, but the most important thing is it helps us with those sudden downpours. And as I work on stream protection fee, it's a message I'm trying to hammer home. Like, there's really no amount of money in engineering that can engineer us out of a Ida type storm. We're still going to have those, and they're still going to be very destructive. But these are the type of projects that help over time as we build more.
yeah, I'm excited to see this. I mean, this is the block from my house, so drive past it all the time, and it's an eyesore. And I'm very excited to some beautification as well, plus the fact that of all the benefits we'll get out of that. So great. Any issues with this? Any public comment? All right, we'll put this under our consent agenda. Item 32 is approve upfitting of 2 police vehicles. Any issues with this? I think this is standard.
Yeah, this item is in our budget. We have $110,000 budgeted this year for capital expenditures. This is the aftermarket equipment that goes into police cars. A police car from the manufacturer costs about $48,000 after you get your government discount. $48,000. And then it takes another 19 to 20,000 to turn it into a vehicle. One of these is going to be unmarked. That's why there's a difference in the pricing. So new police SUVs cost $68,000 each.
Okay. Yep.
I'm
Okay.
good with it. Yeah.
All right. Any public comment on this? All right. Put this under consent. Item 33 is approved purchase of fall zone materials for Everhart Park. It's the fire truck area and Mosteller Park. Is it just like some kind of cushiony stuff or what is it?
Yes. If you remember last year, we upgraded 4 fall zones in 4 different parks. It's literally the same thing, but it's 2 different parks. It's the fire truck area down at the 2 to 5-year-old playground at Everhart and then Mosteller Park. Sean uses this term, state of good repair. We're looking to bring those up to snuff. They haven't been repaired in quite a few years, and it's going to cost a couple dollars to do so. This is budgeted, $20,000 what we have budgeted for this year. Project's under 18, and it is through CoStars.
Comments on this? All right, public comment? All right, then item 33 will go under consent. Item 34 is other business, and so far I see only on here approval of our April 18th and 19th, 2023 Borough Council meeting minutes. Anybody have problems with the minutes? All right, unless there's no public comment, that'll go under consent. Any other business? Ah. All right. That being said, if there's no, Mayor, go ahead.
Sorry, but this has just come up while I've been sitting here. Parking, it's a parking issue. I understand for voting at the Charles A. Melton Center that you blocked off voting from Worthington Street to Adams. That's a 3-block area on both sides, so the neighbors are pretty upset about it. I'm wondering why we've never had a 3-block area.
It's just 2 blocks. I'm not sure why they did it. That was just the standard.
Yeah, usually it's about 1 block there, the block where the center is. It's not usually from, there's from Worthington Street to, I could see it from Worthington Street to Penn Street, but to go from Worthington Street to Adams to Franklin, that's a bit much.
I'll look into that.
And then could you let me know so I can let the residents know? Because right now, that's a tight block. And if both sides, and there's signs on both sides, I've had a couple of residents send me pictures.
The concern is more for access for voters, so we're not going to be policing. But if a resident needs to park, then people that aren't parked there to get access to. So if anyone has a direct concern, if it's ticketed, they can call me and we'll take care of it. But I don't want them to be displaced because of it. And get access to it.
Although the center does have a parking lot, you're well aware of that, right?
Yeah. Just did it for everyone. See where.
Okay, thank you.
Any other business? All right. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.